welcome to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. I'm Juliet, the daughter.
And as ever, I'm Kevin, the dad.
And this week we are doing part 1 of 3 of our Chuck Berry coverage. We polled, you answered, 7 of you said that you would love to see 3 parts, only 1 of you said no. So, we're going with the majority rule on this. Let's dive straight into it. Dad, what do we need to know about Chuck Berry?
So this is going to be our first and possibly last 3-part podcast, unless you pick a box set, because who wouldn't want to go through 100-plus songs of the history of Motown in the 1960s? Anyway, yeah, so Chuck Berry, because I can't think of anyone else in my collection who merits this much time and attention. John Lennon had the best 2 quotations about Chuck Berry. First one was, "Don't give me that sophisticated crap, give me Chuck Berry." And the second one was, "If you tried to give rock and roll another name, you might call it Chuck Berry." That last quote was from when Chuck and John were on the Mike Douglas show, in which John and Yoko co-hosted for the whole week. And they do one song, and the look on Chuck's face when Yoko opens her mouth to make her dolphin noises is priceless.
It is.
I mean, I've seen that little piece that you sent me that was from TikTok.
Yep.
But if you go on YouTube, you can see the whole expression.
Yep.
Oh, my God. But thankfully, when John and Chuck did Johnny Be Good, someone backstage cut off Yoko's mic, and whoever you are, thank you.
You are a national hero.
Yes, anyway, Charles Edward Anderson Berry was born October 18th, 1926 in St. Louis, Missouri, in a neighborhood known as The Ville. His father was a contractor and Baptist deacon, and his mom was a school principal. He developed a love of poetry and music at a young age. In 1941, he won a high school talent show at Sumner High School with a rendition of Confessin' the Blues. In 1944, he was arrested for robbing some stores and stealing a car at gunpoint with some friends.
Uh-oh.
He was convicted and sent to the Intermediate Reformatory for Young Men near Jefferson City, Missouri. He was released in 1947 on his 21st birthday. In 1948, he married Themeta Suggs. They would go on to have 4 children, and amazingly, Themeta stayed married to Chuck for 69 years. Chuck himself had said that when he was home, he was Charles Berry. But on the road, he was Chuck. In the movie Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll, director Taylor Hackford tried to interview Themeta, but he was cut off by Chuck.
Oh.
And she was very, very loyal to him when, he would be accused of things. Her stock answer was always, "I have no idea. I don't read the news. I don't know what's going on."
No hablo inglés.
Pretty much close to it, yeah. Anyway, he started out playing a 4-string tenor guitar, but progressed to a regular 6-string. He worked the East St. Louis scene, working wherever he could. This was in addition to other jobs he held, including working at an auto assembly plant, being a janitor, and he had also trained to be a beautician. He'd been playing blues since his teens and was heavily influenced by blues musician T-Bone Walker in his playing style and showmanship. Chuck made it a point to find out what kind of music his black audiences liked and made sure to replicate as much of it as possible, mostly blues and Nat King Cole songs. Chuck decided to mix in country as well to see what the reaction would be. People wondered, who's the black hillbilly? But they took to him and could dance to his music. In 1953, he was a part of pianist Johnny Johnson's trio along with drummer Ebby Hardy. Johnson's piano style would be fundamental to the Chuck Berry sound. Chuck, being the front man, took over the combo, and the band was one of the top attractions in the black community, second only to Ike Turner's Kings of Rhythm. Chuck wanted to make records. He went to Chicago and met Muddy Waters, who told him to contact Leonard Chess of Chess Records. Chess listened to Chuck's demo tape and liked one of the songs, Ida Red. He had Chuck rework it, and it was retitled Maybelline, which either came from a box of mascara that was on the studio floor and wondered, how did it get there? Maybe Etta James left it behind? Or it was the name of a cow that Chuck remembered from a 3rd grade primer. Either way, it sold 1 million copies. When it came out, Chuck saw that 2 other guys were given songwriting credit in addition to himself. DJ Alan Freed and Russ Fratto, who loaned money to Leonard Chess, and this was how he got paid back. Freed got the credit because it was a form of payola back then. Faster than you could say WTF, Chuck went to court and got the sole writing credit.
Ooh.
This also led him to make sure he would not get screwed over by anyone in the business.
Good.
He drove himself to shows and demanded to be paid in cash before going on stage.
Smart man.
A minimum of $10,000. Encores would cost more, and God help you if you did not honor his contract.
I could just see them scrambling backstage trying to find cash when they realize there's an encore.
That did happen. He would have you by the short and curlies. He knew it, and you knew it, and he knew you knew it. So Chuck was on a roll, issuing one classic after another. Roll Over Beethoven, School Days, Rock and Roll Music, Sweet Little 16, Johnny Be Good, and more. He was in constant demand, touring and appearing in movies. He started investing in real estate and opened a racially integrated nightclub called the Club Bandstand. In 1960, he would open Berry Park, which he envisioned as an interracial country club. Patrons could swim in a guitar-shaped pool, hunt, fish, dance, and stay at a lodge. Now, speaking of touring, at the beginning, Chuck had a regular touring band, including Johnny Johnson. But eventually in the 60s, Chuck played with pickup bands. He'd drive to a gig, get on stage, and tell the band, "Follow me, fellas." Chuck tended to change keys and arrangements on stage while the band was playing.
Oh, no.
And woe to those who could not keep up. This led to Chuck getting a reputation as a sloppy, unexciting performer and being difficult to work with. Bruce Springsteen said when he was starting out and his band backed up Chuck, he asked Chuck, "What songs are we going to play, Chuck?" "Chuck Berry songs," was the answer.
Oh, great.
Yep. Fun fact, punk band The Circle Jerks was Chuck's most favorite band to play with on stage.
Because they could roll with it?
They could. They were able to, yep. Then, of course, Trablage.
Oh, great.
In December 1959, Chuck Berry was arrested under the Mann Act under allegations he had sex with a 14-year-old Apache waitress, Janice Escalante, whom he had transported across state lines to work as a hat check girl at his club.
Oh.
In March 1960, he was convicted and sentenced to pay $5,000 and 5 years in prison. Chuck appealed the decision, saying the judge was racist and prejudiced the jury against him. And his appeal held. The second trial was held in June 1961, resulting in another conviction with 3 years' time. A third appeal failed, and Chuck wound up serving a year and a half from February 1962 to October 1963. Now, for a more detailed analysis of this case, read Chuck Berry and American Life by R.J. Smith, because he really went into detail. It was just really eye-opening, because I've read things where people said, he was just railroaded, this was trumped-up charges, but reading it, not so sure.
Oh, man.
So anyway, it's 1963 and Chuck is out, and he's popular. Something about a British invasion? I don't know. Some bands called the Beatles and the Rolling Stones.
Did they make it big?
I guess they kind of did. The Beatles covered Roll Over Beethoven with George on lead vocals. And as for the Stones, they were Chuck's disciples. And Keith Richards was and still is Chuck's greatest student. He's like the star pupil. And Chuck, he really didn't have a lot to say about either band when he was asked, "Hey, what do you think of the Beatles? What do you think of the Rolling Stones?" Also in 1963, the Beach Boys released Surfin' USA, which was just Sweet Little 16 with different words. And God bless Brian Wilson, he gave Chuck the songwriting credit.
Good for him. He probably knew what would have happened if he didn't.
Probably. Well, I mean, it was so obvious, though. And Chuck was still putting out some great songs. Nadine, You Never Can Tell, Promised Land, and No Particular Place to Go. In 1966, Chuck left Chess Records for Mercury Records, and well, the less said about those releases, the better.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, I don't think they're in existence anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, basically he just ended up recutting the stuff that made him famous. He came back to Chess in 1970. Meanwhile, he played the Toronto Rock and Roll Festival, which included Bo Diddley, Gene Vincent, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, and John and Yoko, among others. In 1972, Chuck scored his first and only #1 song, My Ding-a-Ling. And more on that much later.
Yep.
And anyway, Chuck left Chess again in 1975. He put out an album, Rocket, on Atco Records in 1979, a division of Atlantic Records. It would be his last album until 2017's Chuck, which was released after his death that same year. Also in 1979, Chuck played at the White House. It's not known if he demanded $10,000 from President Jimmy Carter before playing. And then, more troublish. This time with the IRS for non-payment of income taxes.
Oh, no.
Well, you know, when you're getting paid in cash, kind of hard to keep track. Anyway, this resulted in 4 months in prison and 1,000 hours community service, which Chuck served by performing benefit concerts. It's a lot of concerts. Then, the 80s. In 1984, Chuck Berry received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, which is, yeah, we should have given you a lot of Grammys before, but we're trying to make up for it now.
Oopsie.
Yeah. In 1986, Chuck Berry was inducted into the inaugural class of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Back when it was easy to figure out who belonged in the hall. Then the movie Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll came out, which documented concerts celebrating Chuck's 60th birthday. They were staged at the Fox Theater in St. Louis, a place Chuck was once denied admittance because he was black. Keith Richards was the music director. He assembled an all-star band, even finding Johnny Johnson, who was driving a bus for a living.
Oh, my God.
But the movie revitalized Johnny's career, and he would end up going on tours with Eric Clapton playing keyboards. Anyway, Johnny later tried to sue Chuck for songwriting credits, and he had a really strong case, but statute of limitations. Anyway, Keith made Chuck do something he had not done in ages.
What?
Practice. Chuck being Chuck would still change keys and the arrangements, driving Keith nuts. And as Keith said, he gives me more headaches than Mick Jagger, but I still can't complain. I love him, and I've done what I want to do for him. Now I'm going to sleep for a month.
That sounds about right.
Oh, yeah. Now, in the movie, Chuck sang and played with Eric Clapton, Linda Ronstadt, Etta James, and even Julian Lennon, to whom Chuck said, "Say hey to your dad."
He's old. He probably didn't remember. He's kind of losing it.
In 1987, Chuck wrote his autobiography all by himself. No ghostwriter.
Wow.
He was going to control a narrative.
That's impressive.
Now, in an interview about a year or two before he died, he said he had a lot more stories to tell, but they were being kept in a safe. And they would not see the light of day until his 100th birthday, because he figured by then he and the people in those other stories
Would be dead?
would be dead. So 2026 is not too far off.
Oh, God.
Be interesting to see if they actually get released. In 1988, Chuck bought the Southern Air restaurant, hoping the income it generated would allow him to tour less. But installing cameras in the restrooms was not a good idea.
No, that's bad.
Yeah, Chuck was sued and ended up paying $1.2 million in settlements. And if you want, Google the Spy Magazine article, Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, especially sex, for all the sordid details. Or don't. Maybe you probably shouldn't.
Maybe don't.
Anyway, Chuck was still touring, and beginning in 1996, he set up residence at St. Louis's Blueberry Hill Restaurant and Music Club. He played there every third Wednesday of the month until 2014. But now he was at the point of forgetting the words to his songs. His son, Chuck Jr., would have to help steer him right. And I remember Paul telling me he and Joyce saw him. It was either at Foxwoods or Mohegan Sun.
Oh, yeah.
And Paul said it was kind of sad to watch because he would just get lost, and again, his son would have to, go up and help him. In 2000, Chuck got his Kennedy Center honor.
Well deserved.
And on March 18th, 2017, Chuck Berry died of cardiac arrest. He was 90 years old. His final album, Chuck, came out on June 9th, 2017, and it got decent reviews and did pretty well in the album charts, going all the way to number 49 on Billboard's 200 Albums chart.
All right.
Hang on.
Oh.
There's more.
There's even
my
more.
notes are stuck.
Oh, no.
Chuck's influence and impact on rock and roll cannot be overstated. Buddy Holly, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Creedence Clearwater Revival, and even Bob Dylan would not exist without him. Bob called Chuck the Shakespeare of rock and roll. Thus, we can infer that Shakespeare was the Chuck Berry of the theater.
Okay.
Anyway, he was rock and roll's first and greatest songwriter, and that's just scratching the surface. Without Chuck Berry, there'd be no glam rock,
Really?
no T-Rex, No Bowie, no Queen. We will get into that later.
Okay.
His guitar solos replaced the saxophone as the instrument for music breaks and songs. His songs have been covered by countless bands and musicians: Elvis, Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, the Stones, the Beach Boys, ELO, AC/DC, Dave Edmunds, Buddy Holly, Linda Ronstadt, and on and on and on. And they still will be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as for me, well, growing up, I was always aware of Chuck Berry in some way, shape, or form. I knew he did Johnny Be Good, and that was kind of it. I knew about that song being on the Voyager disc, and more on that later. Back in my brief Rhode Island college days, I bought a cassette tape at the bookstore of his greatest hits. At the time, I did not know they were re-recordings of his songs when he was on Mercury Records, but I knew Johnny Be Good sounded different for some reason. And I think at one point I may have had the Great 28 on vinyl or CD at one time, but I'm not 100% sure.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I got his Best Ofs Volumes 1 and 2 on CD that came out in 1996 and 97, and they each had 20 songs on them. Then sometime in the early 2000s at Newberry Comics, I saw a used copy of the anthology and I thought, wait a minute, 50 songs instead of 40? Why not? Vastly improved sound quality, nice liner notes, and extensive personnel listings for every single song. It was reissued in 2005 as part of Universal's Gold Series, and I gave that to Andy when he turned 50. 50 songs, 50 years.
Mm.
So, yeah, 50 songs, 47 of them which Chuck wrote. And, yeah, we could have pared this down to the Great 28, but there was a song that you wanted that wasn't on that collection, and there were just a handful of songs that I wanted that had to be on here. And so, yeah, we are doing all 50. So let's just jump in there.
All right, first song, Maybelline. What's the name of your car? Mine is Vladimir. At first I thought Maybelline was a gold digger who left Chuck to be someone's sugar baby and get a caddy, but then I realized, oh, Maybelline might be the car. And if it is his car, he wants to know why his baby keeps breaking down, but the Cadillac gets theirs in the end. I never understood what this song was about as a kid, but it didn't matter because it sounded fun, which is what rock is supposed to be. Although nowadays, whether I want a fun song or a song with a story depends on my mood. Good opening track because it sets you up for a good time.
Okay, now I have to ask, how did your car come up with the name Vladimir?
I don't know, I just picked it.
Oh,
Yeah.
my car's name is Peppy,
Yep, I know.
short for Peppy Miller.
From the artist.
Yes, because it's got a lot of pep.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, this song is based on I the Red, and you can find Bob Wills in his Texas Playboys version on YouTube. Did you get to watch that?
Yes, I did. And I downloaded that onto my playlist as opposed to this.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And I can hear how it influenced Chuck. So maybe no Bob Wills, no rock and roll? Maybe not. Anyway, Leonard Chess heard it and had Chuck come up with new lyrics. The song is about Chuck trying to catch Maybelline in a car chase. He has a V8 Ford, and she drives a Cadillac Coupe de Ville, first built in 1949. And she has the faster car.
Mm-hmm.
Until the end of the song when he catches up to her, Cadillac sitting like a ton of lead. Yeah, you kind of need to fill him up with gas. Anyway, Chuck invents the word motivating and the rock and roll guitar solo, displacing the sax solo. And nothing was the same since. Kids who couldn't afford the guitar could make one a lot easier than making a saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
And is that Bo Diddley's maracas player Jerome Green doing what he does so well? Yes, it is.
Oh, cool.
Maybelline hit number 1 on Billboard's R&B chart and number 5 on the Hot 100.
All right, next track. Wee Wee Hours. Ooh, a change in tempo and we're getting sensual. Chuck thinks of his baby in the wee wee hours of the morning, and you know what those wee wee hours are. Chuck's voice went from fun and upbeat to husky and longing really quick in a way that surprised me. Most of the song is a jam session, but it's a jam session of longing. Perfect for a slow dance after you haven't seen each other in a while or when you're missing someone. I love this song so much.
That's good. This is the B-side to Maybelline, and if Chuck had had his way, this song would have been the A-side and Maybelline the B, because he thought, well, Chess is a blues label. This is the stuff that they want, right? 12-bar blues. So, didn't turn out that way, but he still got to play his blues. And you know who owns this song?
Who?
Johnny Johnson. Just listening to his piano playing. And I said it before, just a massive influence on Chuck's guitar style, which Chuck would grudgingly admit to years later. I think it was Keith Richards who finally made him come out and say, yeah, that's where I got my guitar licks from. In the wee wee hours, Chuck is thinking of a certain someone and wondering if her love was true. This treads similar ground to Frank Sinatra's In the Wee Small Hours of the Morning, but that song is sung in second person rather than in first person like Chuck. And also, when you get a lot older, in the wee hours kind of means bathroom runs. Trust me. Chuck played a decent blues, but he wasn't going to keep Muddy Waters up late at night.
Next track, 30 Days. The message is simple. If you're not back home in 30 days, you're in trouble. The cops and the voodoo magic are coming for you. And if you're still not home, he's going to go to the FBI. And if the FBI doesn't do anything, which they will, then he'll go to the UN. Like, they'll do anything, because based on the concept of international sovereignty, they can't. He is either very horny or he's a stalker and we need to call the police. But once again, it's so fun we don't care. He's going to have fun catching her. And you could argue he's not serious, just teasing. Another fun one, but I'm bored.
Oh. Did you realize it's just Maybelline with different words?
Yeah, I can hear it now.
Yeah. So Chuck's giving this woman 30 days to get back home. What happens after 30 days? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. As a gypsy woman send out a worldwide hoodoo, that'll be the very thing that'll suit you. Ooh. And then he gets a warrant signed to put a cross charge against her. And I've always heard that line and I had wondered, what's a cross charge? Now, a cross charge has to do with contracting, like a building, but it also has to do with immigration. An applicant can benefit from charging their visa to their spouse's or parents' country of birth rather than their own. Maybe Chuck just wants to weigh her down with red tape. And finally, if he don't get satisfaction, he'll go to the FBI and file a grudge. And if he can't get no consolation from them, he'll hit up the United Nations. And this has always puzzled me when rockers like Chuck and Eddie Cochran in Summertime Blues turn to the UN for help, because they really can't do anything.
Nope, they can't.
Or I'll go one step further, they don't do anything.
The most they can do in times of international conflict is send the peacekeepers to keep an eye on the situation. There's the peace enforcers, but they don't use those because, again, the concept of international sovereignty.
Oh, and I thought it was the thing, we're going to enforce peace whether you want it or not. And this is another great lively rocker punctuated by Chuck's stinging solo.
Next track, You Can't Catch Me. They should have used this as a theme song for some sort of spy movie or thief movie or something. Just imagine after hearing, I'll get you next time, Gadget, you hear this. Either he's got a stalker or there's someone who can't take a hint, so he's got to fly away in Maybelline. Where is he flying to? Anywhere. Hell, maybe even the North Pole. Gonna say it again, this would be great for a getaway movie.
Okay. Chuck has an airmobile with a powerful motor and hideaway wings, which existed back then. The Aero car, as it was called, came out in 1949, and it was never mass-produced, which is probably a good thing because God knows how many mid-air collisions there'd be from drunk flying. Just imagine it. Anyway, you can't catch Chuck. If you get too close, he'll be going like a cool breeze. John Lennon included a version of You Can't Catch Me on his album of cover versions called Rock and Roll in 1975. Why, you may ask?
Why?
Because the song's publisher and wise guy, Morris Levy, sued John for copyright infringement because of melodic similarities between You Can't Catch Me and Come Together.
Oh.
Plus, John used the line, Here Come Old Flat Top. The suit was settled out of court, with John including You Can't Catch Me on Rock and Roll as part of the settlement.
Next track, Downbound Train. Why don't they play this song more on Halloween? One guy's had too much to drink, and he dreams he's on the train to hell. Satan's gonna drag him to hell when he wakes up and promises to do better. And hey, happy ending! He never went to hell! Yay! I love how the studio made this sound spooky, with the guitar strumming and the tempo sounding like the horseman coming to get you or the train chugging along. And they put an effect on Chuck's voice to make him sound like an otherworldly spirit telling you a ghost story. I immediately saved this to my playlist, and to my Halloween playlist too.
Nice. Yeah, so a stranger's lying on a barroom floor and he has a fevered dream about taking the downbound train to hell. Chuck's descriptions of the train, the passengers, and the ride itself is truly fearsome stuff. Now, Chuck was not a drinker. He tried alcohol once and he hated it and swore off it. He did not take kindly to those who could not control this vice. And this was one of the alleged reasons he fired Johnny Johnson from the band. Alleged. The music chugs along and Chuck chips. Try and say that 3 times fast. Chuck chips in the simple solo, but his voice and echo does all the work.
Yep.
It's absolutely riveting. Best non-rhyming couplet? Then out of the distance there came a yell, "Ha ha," said the devil, "we're nearing home," instead of hell. Bruce Springsteen had a song on Born in the USA with the same title, except in his version, he works at a car wash where all it ever does is rain, which I guess could be a particular kind of hell. It's a good song, but this is so much better, and it definitely deserves to be more well known.
Next track, No Money Down. Chuck finds a sign for a Cadillac saying no money down. All he has to do is trade in his Ford. As soon as he hears that, he starts listing off everything he wants in that car, and I mean everything, including a Murphy bed in the back seat. But I don't know, this feels way too good to be true. Like someone's trying to pull the wool over Chuck's eyes and shortchange him. Then again, I don't envy the guy having to try to give Chuck his dream car that could only exist in his dreams. So this seems like it's gonna end badly all around. Moral of the story, read the fine print. Not a song I cared for too much, mostly because cars don't do it for me the way they do it for Chuck.
I kind of looked at this song as like proto-rap.
Okay. Oh, yeah, with like the list?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's listen to songs.
Yeah, so he sees a sign in the Cadillac dealership that says no money down. And he goes in and tells the salesman exactly what he wants. And it may have sounded like science fiction in 1955, but it's amazing how many of his demands have come true over the years. Air conditioning, auto heat, television, and a phone. They're all in cars now.
Yep. Next track, Brown Eyed Handsome Man. I guess there's something about brown-eyed men that makes some women lose their minds. For me, it's always been blue. Think Peter O'Toole and Chris Pine blue, the kind that make you stop and stare. I feel like this is Chuck stroking his own ego about the stuff that women have done just from laying eyes on him. The story of this song doesn't even grab me with the, even with the fun of Venus de Milo losing her arms in a wrestling match, or how you could dance to the music. It's like, that's nice, Chuck. Skip.
So basically, it's the theme of the song is there's been a whole lot of good-looking women shedding tears, all for a brown-eyed handsome man. Now, what Chuck really meant, but could not say at the time, was brown-skinned handsome man.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, a judge's wife tells the DA to free that brown-eyed handsome man if he wants to keep his job. Chuck sees a woman walking 30 miles across the desert to Bombay to see a brown-eyed handsome man, and a mother advises her daughter to marry one over a doctor or a lawyer. And I think the last two verses are the best, with Marlo Venus losing both arms in a wrestling match to win a brown-eyed handsome man.
Yep.
A hilarious allusion to the statue. And Jackie Robinson shows up at the end to win a game for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And I love how Chuck starts off the song by stretching the A in arrested. Charges of unemployment. Anyway, listen to Johnny Johnson on the piano. Again, he's influencing Chuck's playing. An out-and-out classic in less than 2.5 minutes.
Next track, Roll Over Beethoven. I remember Baby George singing this. Chuck is writing a letter to the local DJ saying, hey, enough with that classical music. Put on some rock and roll. Now the question is this song anti-classical music? Absolutely not. Because one, this implies Chuck was listening to them before rock came along. And two, he references Tchaikovsky along with Beethoven. And if you've heard about the woman at the Tchaikovsky concert who enjoyed herself a little too much recently, even the most serious rocker would nod in approval. And classical laid the foundation for a lot of cool music to come out. You'd also be surprised at what some people listen to in their downtime. But enough of Beethoven, more rhythm and blues. I don't go nuts for this song, probably because I've heard it over and over to the point it loses fun. But I'm curious, listeners, what's music that makes you feel like Chuck here, where you want to hear it on the radio on repeat over any other crap? Comment below.
Chuck wrote this in response to his sister Lucy's classical music training. Chuck tells Beethoven to roll over in his grave, or just to roll over to make room for his new music. He doesn't call it rock and roll, it's just rhythm and blues. Oh, and he also tells Tchaikovsky the news. And at the end, he thinks they might dig it as well. Maybe not. I don't think Beethoven would. He always looked too damn serious. But you know who would?
Who?
Mozart. He would be all over this.
Oh, he would, yeah.
Oh, he would. Oh, yeah.
Considering he wrote songs about farts and licking your butt, which is real. Google that.
And as mentioned earlier, the Beatles covered this with George on vocals. Someone once said, and I wish I could remember who it was, that they were stunned when they found out that Chuck Berry wrote this song and not George. Like, Chuck Berry, he's that old guy. What happened? Anyway, ELO did a way too long 8-minute plus version.
Oh, yeah, with Beethoven's Ninth.
Yeah, and the time it takes to listen to their version once, you could hear Chuck's original 3 times and still have a few seconds left over. A stone cold classic that will outlive us all. It was added to the National Recording Registry in the Library of Congress in 2003.
Next track, Too Much Monkey Business. I feel this as someone who doesn't want to be involved in as little drama as possible. I already got to deal with my job. I don't want to deal with other people's drama or any added stressors. Chuck sounds pretty done with it too, and these are all topics everyone can relate to. But this song doesn't grab me and make me want to dance. All it does is make me go, yep, same here, Chuck, same.
Okay, well, you can relate to it anyway on
Yeah.
one level.
Mhm.
Yeah, in which Chuck lists the BS people have to put up with in life. Working at the mill, running to and fro, and then you get home and it's another bill. A salesman's trying to put you in debt. A woman wants Chuck to settle down, get married, get a home, and write a book. And school, no use complaining over there. Your objections are overruled. At the payphone, an operator takes your very last dime. Shades of Nichols and May. The BS you put up with in the Army as a private, and all the tasks you have to do working at a filling station. Best thing about all this is it causes Chuck to invent the word botheration, as in, I don't want your.
Bothersome.
And the Allman Brothers actually titled an album of theirs based on the line in this song, Wipe the windows, check the oil, dollar gas. And I actually have a live version of this song by the Yardbirds, and they do a pretty okay job of it. And supposedly Chuck's rapid-fire delivery in this song inspired Bob Dylan to write Subterranean Homesick Blues.
Next track, Havana Moon. Chuck is standing by the water under the Havana moon with a jug of rum, waiting for a boat to come so he can be reunited with his American girl. The verses are okay, but the chorus is dreamy and something you could sway to as he strums the same chords over and over. If you've ever stayed up late waiting and dreaming for your person, you'll appreciate this song.
Yep, so Chuck rides the Calypso wave, sort of, kind of, because Calypso became a worldwide craze in 1956 thanks to Harry Belafonte's recording of the Banana Boat song, which everyone knows as Day-O.
Day-O.
Daylight come and me want to go home,
There we
okay?
go.
Okay, the craze lasted for maybe a year and a half. Chuck sings it in kind of like a fake Jamaican accent
Yeah.
about meeting an American girl, and they make plans to go to New York together on the boat. She's going to pick him up. She's a little late, and he takes this as she's not coming. And he has just a little too much rum to drink and falls asleep on the beach, and then he wakes up only to find that the boat did come. He grabs his shoes and runs, only to see the boat head for the horizon. And knowing how Chuck felt about alcohol, this could maybe be a lesson of his, is like, you know, if you don't drink too much, you could get that woman of your dreams.
Just saying.
Yep, just saying. Musically, there's not a lot going on, and it's the lyrics that put this song over. And no matter how many times I've heard this song, the ending gets me every single time.
Aw.
Yeah.
Next track, School Day. Oh man, this is too accurate. Go to school, learn stuff, eat lunch, go back, and then when 3 o'clock comes, bolt the hell out of there. I don't miss the rigmarole of school. I just miss elementary school back when the workload was light and it was more about fun. And I was still happy when the bell rang at 2 p.m. For Chuck, his favorite thing to do after school is go dancing to rock music at the local juke joint. For me, the routine was simple. Go home, have a snack, and do my homework before 4 o'clock so I could watch Cyberchase and Word Girl, then take a break, and back to PBS at 5:30 for my favorite show, Fetch with Ruff Ruffman, before dinner. And that was it. He really captures how it's the same old routine until you get to your favorite part of the day when you go home. This song brought me some nostalgia, the good and the bad, so I don't think I could listen to it all the time.
Oh, wow. It's school day. It's also known as school days. You can pick either one. And either way, we have a 31-year-old man taking us through a typical high schooler's school day. And it's like he remembered everything. He gets every detail right.
His mom being a principal probably helped too.
Yeah, probably. Studying hard, hoping to pass, the guy behind you won't leave you alone, trying to find a seat in the cafeteria, then back in class to deal with a mean-looking teacher. But then 3 o'clock comes. Down the halls, out into the street, to the local teen juke joint to dance and romance, which I'm not sure what the substitute of that would be. Do teenagers still hang out in... Are there any types of places like that anymore, like a soda shop? Probably not.
Probably just hang out at Shaw's across the street from the UP and the Starbucks inside.
Oh, I bet you're right. I bet
Yep.
it is the Starbucks these days. Or around these parts, maybe the Dunkin'. And then out of nowhere, he just ends it all with Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll. And this song was probably the first to show that teens had to deal with BS on a daily basis, and that school was as much of a daily grind as having a 9 to 5 job.
Well, it is modeled after the American factory system. Why do you think there's a bell saying when we can go to lunch?
Dang.
Yep.
And this must have been eye-opening to teens themselves. A rock and roller, a much older rock and roller at that, understood their lives, and it was almost like he was reporting it from the front lines.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck's guitar echoes each line he sings. We get another stinging solo too, and this is one of his most necessary songs.
Next track, rock and roll music. Now this is a song you can dance to with the tempo and the piano because Chuck wants you to dance with him. It doesn't matter what song or artist, he just wants to listen to it and dance to that backbeat. It's just a song where you can turn off your brain and jam, even in the bridge where he plays different dance genres, which sometimes we need, and this is a nice happy upbeat palate cleanser after experiencing memories of the American public school system.
Hmm. And speaking of necessary songs, yeah, it's another one. And Chuck has nothing against other forms of music, but rock and roll is it, his alpha and omega.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Johnson plays all of Chuck's riffs on his piano, and the whole thing ends with cha-cha-cha. The first version I ever heard was the Beach Boys cover from their 1976 album, 15 Big Ones, to celebrate the Boys' 15th anniversary as a band.
Mm.
It hit number 5, and there was no escaping it in the summer of 76. Now, did you get a chance to listen to that?
To what?
Rock and roll music? Because I sent you,
Oh, the Beatles and the Beach Boys?
Yeah.
I like the Beach Boys version better.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. We're
Yeah.
going to have a little difference of opinion here. Then I heard the Beatles version, and to me it revealed how anemic the Beach Boys version is. And their version is not bad. I will admit that. Like I said, I heard theirs first, and maybe that's why I'm, I guess, kind of used to it or accepting of it. John stops short of screaming the lyrics. And Chuck's version I heard last. It's great, but I'm going to be committing sacrilege here. To me, that Beatles version just cannot be beat.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Chuck, and I'm sure he's scowling at me somewhere in the afterlife.
You're going to
Now,
the downbound train.
I am. So why do we have a difference of opinion here with this one?
I'm like a sucker for the melodic harmonies in there. If they're really, really good, I pay attention to them and my brain does not want to let go. It's like, more of this, please.
You mean like with the boys just singing rock, roll, rock and roll
But
over
it's
and
all
over and over
different.
and over
It's
and
all
over and
different
over.
layers. I like
Rock,
it.
roll, rock and over and over and over and over and over.
Sometimes I like something tuneful. Sue me.
Wow, I really thought you would have gone for the Beatles one.
Nope.
That's like something straight out of
Because he just sounded like Chuck Berry 2.0, and I was like, oh, they're not even doing anything different. And it's like, if I want to listen to Chuck Berry, I can listen to Chuck.
Oh, I think they're doing it different. I mean, John is just like he's going to lose his voice, and it's kind of like this is probably how they sounded back in their Reeperbahn days in Germany,
Oh, yeah.
where they had to play an ungodly amount of hours every night for so many months.
It's sleeping behind a porno. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you read about how much they had to play there, and you realize this is where they got their chops. And anyone who says they couldn't play their instruments is full of crap.
Next track, Oh Baby Doll. I wish this song was like that opening, tonally different from the rest of the album with a bit of dissonance that made you sit up and wonder, ooh, what's this?
Yeah.
Then it goes into regular rock and roll and I'm kind of disappointed. Although his instrumental in the middle is a jam. Chuck hopes things with his love don't change. He plays out his feelings on the guitar. But other than that instrumental in the opening, nothing too memorable about this song for me.
It's interesting that you say, it has this great start and then it just goes into regular rock and roll.
Yeah.
Well, or you could say,
I'm saying,
the Chuck Berry style. I get it. I get it.
If you're gonna do something different at the beginning, follow through with it all the way. Don't disappoint me by teasing me with, hey, I'm gonna branch out and try something new, and then you don't.
Well, it got your attention.
Yeah, but then you lost me again.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So Chuck sings to his baby doll about whether they'll still be together once the school year ends, and reminisces how they would walk to school, listen to songs on the way, and make it just in time before the bell rang. When the teacher stepped out of the classroom, he'd get out his portable radio, which was probably pretty big back then. I don't know if transistors were around at that time or if that was like in the early 60s. And they would dance, but be back in their places when the teacher got back. And for me, I've heard this song 87 million times. Never tired of it. But I never really honed in on the lyrics until this podcast. And I noticed that it's unusual in that there are always songs about the summer romance and will it last once school starts? And of course it never does. In this song, it flips that narrative. It's like, all I could think of was, well, maybe Chuck and Baby Doll are going away to different places for the summer. Maybe. Not a balls out classic, but the band keeps things jumping.
Next track, Sweet Little 16. This is a song for every teeny bopper in the 50s wanting to see rock and roll shows and get some autographs. And because it's period specific, I can't really relate to it all that well. Chuck singing as the 16-year-old begging mommy and daddy is kind of hilarious. But if I want to hear a song with 16 in it, I love Ringo's You're 16, You're Beautiful and You're Mine.
Yeah, I know. I've always had a little problem with You're 16.
Oh,
You're
why does
Beautiful.
Ringo sound like Rapey McGee?
Well, because every version that I've heard it, I'm thinking, these guys are kind of old
Yeah.
to be singing this song.
Very
Anyway,
true.
anyway, half of this song tells us where people are rocking. It starts off, they're really rocking in Boston. Yes, they are. And it goes from there. American Bandstand gets a shout out from when it was a local TV show in Philadelphia, PA. And the rest of the song, all the cats just want to dance with Sweet Little 16. She goes to every show she can just to collect the autographs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not known if she's actually like listening to the bands or
Yeah.
if she's just a collector. And in these days, she could probably sell them on eBay, no problem.
Oh, yeah.
But having to have a certificate of authenticity as well, which is kind of
Yeah,
tough.
you have to be like in How to Steal a Million, where they get the experts to come in and analyze it, and once they find out it's a fake, boom, you're screwed.
And I suppose these days you would probably have to like get out your phone and take a picture of whoever you got the autograph from,
Yeah, just to vouch for it.
or actually film video of them signing it.
Or go on Google and Google what their real signature is and do a comparison. I've done that before.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and anyway, Sweet 16 tries to sweet talk both mom and dad to let her go to yet another show. And on top of all that, she's got the grown-up blues. Or as Britney Spears once put it, I'm not a girl, not yet a woman. Which, God help me, I actually went on YouTube and watched a minute of that song. That was all I could handle. Anyway, 16's wearing tight dresses, lipstick, high heel shoes. But back in school the next day, she's Sweet Little 16 once more. It's like she's got this secret identity.
Alter ego, yeah.
Yeah. Lafayette Leak is on piano, and he is killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Fred Below on drums. His fills are great. And as mentioned earlier, Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys kept the music, changed the words, called it Surfing USA, and gave Chuck a writing credit. A mashup of those two songs would be so easy to do. And you know who else wants a writing credit
Who?
on Surfing USA?
Oh.
Mike Love himself.
Oh.
Because his things, I helped out too.
I'm helping.
And, you know, being as Sue happy as he is, I'm sure he probably sued Brian over this. And he's probably going to sue me now just for talking about this.
She's going to sue our podcast.
Probably.
Come at us. All right.
Also, when the late, great rock station WBCN was still around, one of their promos was the line, "They're really rocking in Boston," from the original and various covers of Sweet Little 16, Strong All Together.
Oh, cool.
So you had Chuck's version, John's version, other versions I'm not familiar with, but it was great. I miss that radio station so much. I think it's like some sort of talk station now, or just all news all the time, or...
Man, all your favorite stations are gone.
I know, I think it's me. I'm listening
the
to them.
curse.
Maybe I'm not listening to them hard enough.
You're a jinx.
I guess I am.
Next track?
So, people out there, if you have a radio station you really hate, let me know what it is. I will try to listen to it, and that way they'll just pull it off the air.
Problem solved. Next track, Guitar Boogie. All right, we have a full instrumental here where Chuck can really let his playing chop show, and it lives up to the title, a song that you can boogie and groove to. At one point, it sounded like he was about to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, and I laughed when he went back to the regular chords. And that weird sound effect that might have been reverb was really cool to listen to. Reminds me of when jazz musicians improvise and eventually go back to the melody. Very interesting to listen to so you can hear what a great player he was.
Yep. It's a very solid instrumental. Like you said, it quotes Mary Had a Little Lamb at one point, which kind of made me remember Stevie Ray Vaughan did a version of Mary Little Lamb. Mary Had a Little Lamb. And then worked it into a Tisket a Tasket. Anyway, for some reason, I heard this song a lot at Whole Foods on
Carl?
their station. No, this is on like their regular Whole Foods station.
Okay.
And I'm not complaining at all. I mean, it's like, wow, they're playing Chuck Berry in here. But the thing is, it was the only Chuck Berry song they'd play, though. The instrumental, which, like I said before, I have no problem with it. It's just a really great instrumental.
But why that one?
And I don't know, but the first time I heard it, I thought, wow, someone knows their Chuck. They dug really deep to get this.
Conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory time. Maybe they thought rock and roll is the devil's music, and once Chuck opens his mouth, people at Whole Foods will stop working and they'll just start dancing and singing along and losing their shit. So they just keep it to the instrumental. That way people can't party.
Right, and the customers will keep shopping and spending ungodly amounts of money.
Yep.
Anyway, the Yardbirds did a cover called Jeff's Boogie,
Okay.
which I actually have. I borrowed a 2-disc anthology from the library and heard it, and I thought, hey, this sounds awfully familiar. Now, here's the weird thing. Sometimes Jeff Beck gets a solo credit.
Okay.
And when I found this song on YouTube, I was trying to do research to see, hey, who's getting credit for Jeff's Boogie? And someone had put this up on YouTube and had the 45. And you know who got credit on the 45?
Chuck?
No, all 5 Yardbirds got the songwriting credit.
Oh.
Even the one who doesn't sing, even the one who just sings, got a songwriting credit for this.
Wow, okay.
And I really searched, and I have yet to find a version out there where Chuck gets a songwriting credit as well. I like to think it's out there. Maybe I didn't dive deep enough, but, you know, being the almost senior that I am on the interwebs, I did what I could. So, listeners out there, if you find it, please let me know. Thank you.
Next track, Reelin' and Rockin'. I think the song should be titled Reelin' and a Rockin' because of how Chuck bounces off on the letter D. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, bouncing.
Yeah.
Like in the King's Speech.
Yeah, bounce off of it. A people's.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes I do that when I'm singing too because it's easier to hit the note that way if you bounce onto it. But don't do it all the time because it
people
sounds
will
like
notice.
because it sounds like you're singing the wrong word. Like for example, if I was to sing the word night, but if I bounce onto it, a night, people are like, what's a night? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You gotta make it still sound like a real word. Anyway, Chuck wants to spend all the minutes of his day reeling and a rockin' and rolling till the break of dawn. So he does every time he glances down at his watch. He doesn't know if he's dead or alive from all his dancing, but you want to have as much fun as he does dancing all day. Perfect for a summer party.
Believe it or not, this is the B-side to Sweet Little 16.
Really?
And before such a thing occurred, this could have been a double A side 45, because both of them hits. So Chuck's out at rock and roll dance, and he keeps checking his watch every few minutes or so. He lets us know what's happened each time he checks it. At one point, he checks it, and to his surprise, he's dancing with a woman twice his size. But he keeps on dancing, reeling and rocking, and even rolling until the break of dawn, even when the band says they're not going to play no more. And it's another classic. And we will revisit this later in a live version. And lyrically, it's quite different from this one.
Okay, I think I know what it is now.
Oh, yeah.
Final track, Johnny Be Good. I think this is the first time I've ever paid attention to the lyrics. Johnny Be Good is a little country boy who can't read or write, but he can play guitar, and everyone marvels at how good this kid is. And that's it. Simple story with the groove, and forever made iconic by Back to the Future with Marty McFly. Even if you don't like it, your kids will someday. And I'm going to state an opinion. That scene in the movie is probably the most perfect music video that you could have for that song.
Really?
Probably just because it encapsulates its time of like 50s rock and roll and people dancing to it and having a good time with period appropriate clothes. And then it goes off the rails at the end, but it's kind of fun to see how it goes off the rails because he just gets so into Chuck Berry.
Then there's also critics who have come out and said, "Hey, so it kind of gives credence to, hey, whites invented rock and roll."
Uh-oh.
Yeah, because you got that, "Hey, it's your cousin Chuck, it's your cousin Marvin Berry. I found that sound you're looking for." Anyway, there are a few theories as to who this song is about. One is it's about Johnny Johnson, and the phrase "Johnny Be Good" was a warning from Chuck to Johnny to behave and to knock it off with the drinking, why don't you?
Or else.
Another theory is Chuck wrote it about himself, because originally he wrote a colored boy named Johnny Be Good, but he knew that would not be played on the radio, so he changed it to country, and in that one change, turned it into the story of Elvis Presley.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And there have been so many covers of this song, but the original still cannot be beat, and Chuck's guitar absolutely stings. And I tried doing some research. I couldn't find anything that said that it's in the National Recording Registry like Roll Over Beethoven.
Oh.
And I'm wondering, does that mean, like, a musician only gets one song put in there? because I like to think this would be in there, or it should be in there. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Now, do you remember when you first saw this in Back to the Future?
Yeah, when the movie originally came out, I saw it in the theater.
And what did you think of them adding it in there?
1985. I thought it was funny.
Okay.
Now, in 1977, Johnny B. Good was launched into space on the Voyager 1 probe as a track on one of the Voyager Golden records. Now, both records contain pictures, greetings in various languages, and of course, music. Beethoven, Mozart, Stravinsky, and Chuck are some of Earth's music artists represented. Carl Sagan also wanted the Beatles' Here Comes the Sun, but the Beatles, specifically George Harrison, did not own the copyright at the time.
Aw, crap.
EMI did, and they wanted $50,000. And the two records themselves cost $18,000 to produce.
Oh, okay.
And even the inclusion of Johnny B. Good was criticized, rock and roll being looked on as adolescent. And Carl Sagan's great reply, there are a lot of adolescents on the planet.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. This also led to a great SNL skit called, I think it was called The Week Yet to Be, or the upcoming week. It was like some sort of psychic show. I know Steve Martin was in it. And it's reported that aliens played the Voyager Golden records and sent back to Earth a 4-word message.
What?
Send more Chuck Berry.
Yeah, I like it.
And by the way, there was also a Voyager 2 that was launched in 77. And to this day, both Voyagers 1 and 2 still transmit data back to Earth. And in 1999, Johnny B. Good was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. So I guess that counts for something.
Okay.
And I got to say, if Chuck Berry had only recorded this song, he'd still be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
If the aliens are out there, do you think they know Chuck Berry has passed away? Or if they come to Earth one day, they'll be like, hey, where's Chuck Berry? And then they lose their shit and they conquer the planet.
And they destroy Earth.
Yes, exactly.
But we got these. We got more music for you.
We want him to sign it. What do you mean he's dead? Oh man.
Don't you aliens have reanimation technology? Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Let's bring them back. Oh, can you imagine if they tried to bring Chuck Berry back in the 21st century? Hey, what did I miss?
Everything.
Do you want to know? On that note, as always, thank you for listening to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Remember, the more you interact with the video, the greater chance we have of appearing on the YouTube homepage. If you follow me on Twitter, I post the episodes there. If you're friends with my dad, just shoot him an email and he can send whatever episode you want right to your inbox. And as always, if you like what you heard, please leave a tip for us in the Ko-Fi tip jar. Thank you for listening to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. We'll be back next time with the continuation of our Chuck Berry coverage. Dad, anything you want to say before we sign off?
Yes, a word of advice for everyone out there. Never trust a rock band that cannot play a Chuck Berry song.
'Cause then they're not a rock band.
Darn right.